Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Thursday, June 5th. We've got the top local stories from coast to coast. Stories that affect you and the country. Thanks for joining us.
You can see emergency workers flanking stretchers, taking one victim after another to waiting ambulances.
Oh my God, I can't even count it. It was so many because they shoot in here and they shoot in the other side of the building.
6 victims in all rushed to hospital, shot in the area of Flemington and Zachary Roads near Rainey.
We were in our apartment. We just saw hundreds of cop cars flying by.
20 minutes nonstop, cops, ambulances, sirens I've never heard before.
Many of the wounded, who range in age from 17 to 31, were found in an alleyway between a high-rise and Allen Road, although police say they found other victims at secondary scenes.
That was really crazy to me because I don't think we've ever had something as bad as that.
The police response was swift. Uniformed and plainclothes officers, the Guns and Gangs unit, and the emergency task force attending to the wounded, calming the public and hunting for the suspects.
This kind of violence causes a lot of pain and anxiety in our communities.
Police say 3 suspects approached a group of people just after 8:30 last night and opened fire.
The area was targeted, that group of individuals was targeted, but I don't know specifically who in that group was targeted.
A 31-year-old man who was in a wheelchair would die. And according to the Toronto Police Association, others could have met the same fate if not for the extraordinary efforts of emergency workers.
Today was a reminder to our community, to our city and our elected officials that the cost of inaction, the price of it is way too high.
Community advocates once again calling for action, including tighter gun control and legal reforms.
I spoke with a family member of deceased, and right now they're so distraught. You know, it's like they're crying out, enough is enough.
A community rocked by violence and grief.
I'm angry. I've seen a lot of death. This is a lot of death. I'm tired of seeing people die.
You can do that.
Police say a number of weapons were used, although they haven't recovered any of the guns at this point. The victims, or rather the suspects, were last seen wearing dark clothing and face masks. They are described as 3 males. Reporting live from Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Janice.
This garage in Lachine was one of many stops for Montreal police as 150 officers carried out coordinated raids. They arrested 13 people after 15 searches across DDO, Chateauguay, Laval, and Montreal. We're not just attacking the executors, but the groups who orchestrated these crimes, says SPVM Commander Pierre-Marc Houle. It comes after more than a dozen attempted extortions against bars and restaurants this year alone. Business owners haven't been spared. The home of an A5 hospitality group co-founder was targeted twice by gunshots. One of the group's restaurants, Madame Bovary in Boucherville, was likely hit by arsonists. Police also believe a second restaurant, Fly Gin, was the target of an arson attempt. But this coffee shop located in the same building was damaged instead. While extortion is not new, bar owners president Peter Sergakis says it's never been this violent.
They shoot in the houses, they burn the places. It's very dangerous what they're doing.
He wants the crackdown to go beyond a one-time police operation. The SPVM says its investigation is ongoing and more arrests could come. Police will continue to analyze the evidence to see if more charges could be laid. They say 2 independent groups were allegedly attempting to extort the same restaurant owners. Some of those arrested will appear in court within 24 hours. Others were released on the promise to appear. Maria Saru, CTV News.
A small passenger plane landed in Winnipeg Tuesday, carrying a very tired crew of search and rescue workers who spent days in the path of a raging wildfire.
The smoke was so thick at times, it was black inside the helicopter and it was daylight out, so it was kind of it was a nerve-wracking experience there.
Brian Preston arrived in Puckatawagan last Thursday to begin evacuation efforts in the community. Preston is one of more than 150 members of Manitoba's Urban Search and Rescue Team, or CAN TF4.
Canada Task Force 4 is one of 6 federally recognized heavy urban search and rescue task forces. So they're a team that has specialized skills for large-scale collapse structure rescues.
Gagne called on CAN TF4 and they answered. Preston, team lead with 5 other members, helped mobilize evacuees.
When you're looking out the window of a helicopter and you see fire all the way around the community, you really wonder yeah, we need to get these people out. We need to get them out yesterday, not today.
CAN TF4 member Stephanie Couturier spent 6 years with Alberta Wildfire. She said being in a fly-in community with limited infrastructure added challenges to the rescue. The team also lost power in the area and access to communications was limited.
I think some of the biggest challenges are the critical infrastructure, so not having places for some of that bigger aircraft to land, not having the runway space.
Communications was our biggest downfall at the beginning, but once we established all that, it went actually fairly smooth.
The Canadian Armed Forces was critical for communications between firefighters and the team.
That really made it. We moved a lot of people from there on.
Couturier says close to 2,500 people were safely evacuated. Ryan Schenk, the fire commissioner of Manitoba, said hotspots are still flaring up in Puckatawagan, but the fire is stable. He says this fire season is bringing out the best in all of the teams.
What really comes to mind is the professionalism, the dedication, and the commitment of all the response partners that are coming together.
Evacuees were sent as far as Hamilton and Niagara Falls, Ontario, and more than 14,000 have been registered with the Red Cross so far.
Joseph, what is next for this team?
Marilee, 3 of the 6 members I spoke with have already been sent to help with the ongoing fires on the way to Nopaming Provincial Park. Very little time to rest in what has been a busy season for fighting fires.
Well, we hope they stay safe. All right, thanks for this, Joseph.
Destruction. Video showing what's left of Adam Atkinson's family cabin in northern Saskatchewan.
Burnt completely down to the ground.
Metal bed frames are the only reminders of what once was. Even the dock floating on water burned.
To within an inch of the top of the water. That's how ferocious the fire was.
The Larange cabin had been in Atkinson's family since 1983. A place of peace, connection, and tradition now gone. The wildfire also destroyed the cabin's outbuildings, hot tub, and quads. But the most painful loss are the sentimental items: artwork, family heirlooms, photo albums, and his brother's ashes.
The last things that we were remembering my brother by were destroyed in the fire. So as we considered all of those things and remembered what was stored at the cabin, what we used to do at the cabin, then there was a lot of tears that came after that as we realized all the stuff that was lost. But still kind of a state of shock. It's been barely 24 hours since the cabin burned, and we're still kind of considering all the things that we lost.
And Atkinson expects rebuilding won't be easy. The Rona store, the community's key source for tools and supplies, also burned on Tuesday night. Right next door, the flames took down the Robertson Trading Post, a historic building filled with hundreds of pieces of Indigenous art and cultural artifacts. In a social media post, the family business wrote, quote, "We are filled with regret that we weren't able to save the artwork. Let this tragedy be a reminder to all that a moccasin is not just a slipper." The Trading Post urging people to protect and hold their special pieces close as wildfires show no sign of slowing down. Laurel Woodward, CTV News, Saskatoon.
BC's only aluminum smelter is in Kitimat, where the Rio Tinto facility known as BC Works employs 1,100 people and indirectly employs many more. No word yet on what the tariff increase will mean for the smelter, but the business community is hopeful Rio Tinto takes a long-term view.
Obviously, this is a huge hit for the aluminum industry. But again, I know that they will take care of their company and they'll take care of the employees and, really try to do what is best overall for the community.
In the Lower Mainland, the local aluminum manufacturing sector is closely watching any developments on tariffs. Uncertainty, the word on everyone's lips.
It's concerning. To be honest, we're not 100% sure exactly what it means yet because the dust is still settling. But an increase of 25 to 50 obviously makes it that much less affordable for us to operate.
Prime Minister Mark Carney pledging to respond if needed, but not before giving trade talks with the U.S. a chance.
The new tariffs on steel and aluminum are unlawful, unjustified, and illogical. I agree with the member. We are in intensive negotiations with the Americans and in parallel preparing reprisals if those negotiations do not succeed.
At the same time, a plea from the industry to mandate the use of Canadian steel in government projects.
Bridges, highway projects, transit projects, and just the requirement saying, hey, look, we want to see Canadian-made products in those projects would go a long ways to helping us and other fabricators or other steel companies.
Westport Daycare forced to close, its license temporarily suspended by the province. This Ministry of Education report detailing disturbing allegations following a complaint and inspection. The report alleges educators were instructed to keep children on their cots, even if it meant physically restraining them. The educator disclosed that they all use their hands and arms to hold the children on their beds. The report that identified several issues also alleged children were deprived of basic needs. One of the alleged incidents reported was that a staff member was observed placing a child in a high chair as a form of discipline, force-feeding a child with a spoon and taking away their lunch. And on the second day of the inspection, it was observed there were 3 separate incidents when children were left unsupervised on previous dates, and it wasn't documented. A parent who didn't want to be identified said she spoke with former staff members who told her her child had been pinned down at nap time. "It makes me mad. It infuriates me," she told CTV. "They're just kids. You think you're sending your kids somewhere safe when you're at work, and you're expecting these people to care for your children." In an email to parents, the daycare's assistant director said this came to light due to a disgruntled employee or ex-employee. A lawyer representing the daycare wrote in a statement, "The recent ministry report includes allegations that are troubling and untrue, and that Westport Daycare stands by their team, remains committed to transparency, high standards, and the trust that families place in them every single day." Ontario Provincial Police say they're aware of the investigation by the Ministry of Education, but at this time, police have not been asked to conduct an investigation of their own. The Ministry of Education says the centre will remain closed until the ministry confirms that all requirements have been met and Westport Daycare can demonstrate it can safely care for children. Some of the other issues flagged include not reporting serious occurrences to the ministry within 24 hours and not ensuring some required policies are implemented. There are some people speaking out in support of the daycare online. Family and Children's Services of Lanark, Leeds and Grenville is also involved.
Tracy Kukrutz has endured a painful 2.5-year process at the dentist.
I'm very hesitant, more so now, to go to a dentist than I ever was before.
In 2022, she was told she needed 2 crowns. She got one done, and the following year, the other. It cost her $3,000, but she suffered immense pain. She instead had a root canal done on that tooth. That too, another $3,000.
That's an implant. So I could have just got an implant in the first place. Again, if I was kind of told that the tooth is in bad shape, down the road you might need to do this, I would have just probably did that.
Kukrutz and her boyfriend are self-employed. Despite having a minimal insurance plan, it only covers $350 for dental coverage annually. Anything else is out of pocket. She then went on to have more procedures totaling over 2 years, about $14,000.
That's just absurd. Like, I can't imagine a family or a single parent that has a child or themselves that need to have...
A new report by insurance company Policy Me shows that 56% of Canadians say they are putting off appointments because they're too expensive.
Even with 80% of people having some sort of insurance, to see 60% of people avoiding because of cost just shows you the gaps in these coverages.
I've worked 2 or 3 jobs pretty much my whole life. I've paid into dental and medical my whole life. And then when I need it, because now I'm self-employed, now it doesn't cover anything.
64% of Albertans are paying out of pocket for dental care.
I mean, you'd think healthcare, dental care would be a necessity and one of the last things that you would look to cut when times get tough or you don't have the budget. And it's quite shocking to see that it's actually almost viewed as a discretionary spend.
The report also notes that only 4% of Albertans are accessing the Canadian dental care plan to cover costs.
People need to be very aware of what's in their benefit plans and what coverage they have. And again, don't fall victim to the "I'm covered, I'm good," and really look at what's in there.
The online survey took place between May 9th and 12th, polling 1,500 Canadians and has a margin of error plus or minus 2.53 percentage points, 19 times out of 20.
And Tyson joins us live from Southeast Calgary. Tyson, this latest survey is also backed up by recent Statistics Canada data.
Ian StatsCan saying that last year, nearly 1 in 4 Canadians 12 and older skipped their appointments at the dentist just due to rising costs. And the Canadian dental care plan was supposed to make it a little more affordable for those over 65 and under the age of 18 without any coverage, and making about $90,000 in family net income. However, there are other reasons why many are not going to the dentist. That includes nervousness and anxiety. Ian?
Tyson, thanks very much.
While southwestern Ontario is not the steel hub of Canada, multiple industries, large and small, rely on the product. Take Elgin County-based ETBO. The automotive parts manufacturer is a big buyer of both steel and aluminum. Roughly 40% comes from the United States.
1 million pounds of steel a week, a couple million pounds of aluminum a month. So we're significant consumers of this product.
A product under siege by U.S. tariffs. The trickle-down effect is hurting southwestern Ontario as products made here ship back to the United States.
It's another attack on our industry and our country.
But as local firms and their employees cope with uncertainty and anxiety, Bourne contends it's American consumers who will bear the impact of the tariffs the most.
It's the U.S. taxpayer that pays it, right? It's not. I'm not going to pay it. Our margins don't allow for absorption of that.
But some who rely on steel for their livelihoods believe the fear of tariffs may be driving up prices more than is justified. Kevin Lansdowne has operated a small steel fabricating shop for nearly a decade. He buys primarily Canadian-produced steel. Lansdowne says since tariff talk began, prices have trended upward, making it difficult to predict expenses.
It's hard to quote a job, and then you get the go-ahead on the job, and then you find out that your steel prices have gone up. I think it's kind of like COVID times, it's unpredictable.
I personally believe that there's going to be some sort of negotiated deal in here, and that that this is leverage in bargaining.
A sentiment we heard from a half dozen more steel consumers, suppliers, and manufacturers in the region.
What goes down will come up again. And I see a bright future for Canada because I think we're pretty abundant in resources.
Sean Irvin, CTV News.
They keep the power on for nearly every home and business in Nova Scotia. But today, the province's utility couldn't shed any more light on the cyber breach that's kept them in the hot seat for weeks.
Why were those social insurance numbers still in your system?
A question asked again and again at Province House, grilling top executives from Nova Scotia Power over the security hack affecting 280,000 people, about half their customer base.
That is part of an ongoing investigation. That is a very important part of our ongoing investigation, and I don't have an answer for you today.
Hackers gained access to about 140,000 social insurance numbers. While the utility says it currently has no practice of collecting SINs, it confirms some were stored digitally.
We cannot at this time delete those files because there's an active investigation going on. But our commitment is, once the investigation is complete, to, yes, delete those social insurance numbers.
The company is offering free credit monitoring for 2 years and are considering extending the service.
The number of attacks is increasing. The complexity of the attacks is increasing. The capabilities of the cyber criminals out there is getting better all the time.
When pressed on who pays to fix the system, the CEO and president didn't rule out charging ratepayers.
We do anticipate that our insurance will cover insurable costs on this, and I think that's probably all I can say at this point.
The response drew criticism.
And they left a lot of questions on the table, so for us, we have major concerns around what the next steps are going to be, what compensation potentially could be there for Nova Scotians.
People deserve answers right now, and I think what we heard today were a lot of speaking points in relation to expected cost and what insurance not covering.
They wouldn't commit to that money not being charged back to us. They also asserted that no financial harm had been done, and I think hundreds of thousands of Nova Scotians would beg to differ.
Bruce, we also heard today from Nova Scotia Power saying that customers will be getting their bills starting today and throughout the week. Some customers have already said they've been able to access their accounts on Nova Scotia Power's website. Bruce?
Okay, thank you, Hafsa. CTV's Hafsa Arif reporting live tonight from Halifax.
This complex on Hespeler Road in Cambridge will soon include a clinic where people can donate their plasma and get paid for it.
Plasma is the component of blood that looks kind of yellow or straw colored.
It contains plasma proteins like antibodies. Plasma is used for transfusions or to make products like immunoglobulins that can be administered regularly to people with certain immune deficiencies.
It's a maintenance that a lot of these patients require lifelong. It's almost like someone with diabetes needing insulin because they just don't have enough. These patients are the same. They really don't have enough antibodies, so they need them to protect them against infections.
The problem is Canadian Blood Services says they only get a fraction of what they need when it comes to plasma donations, which at their clinics are not paid. Nearly 3 years ago, they announced a plan to boost donations by having a global healthcare company called Grifols open plasma collection centers where donors are offered honorariums, up to $100 per donation, according to the Grifols website.
At the moment, we are reliant on some plasma that is coming from the U.S. And again, many of those are paid donors already.
Both Canadian Blood Services and Grifols emphasize that the plasma collected in Cambridge will be used to produce life-saving immunoglobulin medicines for patients in Canada.
This clinic will be the 15th across Canada, with 2 more scheduled to open in Ontario later this summer.
Donating plasma involves blood being removed, the plasma separated out, and then the rest of the blood returned to the donor. This means plasma can be donated more frequently than blood.
Because it doesn't cause, iron loss or doesn't cause your red blood cells to be too low, and your body's pretty good at regenerating those proteins.
Canadian Blood Services should do everything it can to increase voluntary donations. But if the Canadian healthcare system needs to use paid plasma, then I think it's better if the paid donors are here because we can be responsible for using ethical standards to regulate it.
Christopher Lowry is an associate professor of philosophy at the University of Waterloo and says while free donations are the gold standard, given the circumstances, paying Canadians for plasma seems to be the next best option. Adding it's important that there are strong ethical guidelines around how it is done.
For example, those regulations should at least make sure that there is informed consent before the procedure every time they donate, and that the donors know that they have the right to stop in the middle if they change their mind.
Canadian Blood Services says honorariums can be offered for plasma because they have a provincial exemption, and Grifols is acting as their agent. Grifols says they expect the Cambridge clinic to be open in a couple of months.
They're the best team in Alberta, and they're Canada's team.
Even in Flames country, it's easy to find support for the Edmonton Oilers. The town of Cochrane raising an Oilers flag today, encouraging all to rally behind the orange and blue.
It's Canada. We want to win the Stanley Cup.
You got to cheer for the Canadian team.
That sentiment easily found on the West Coast.
Who are you cheering for in the Stanley Cup final and why?
Edmonton Oilers. Bring the cup back to Canada.
Why are you cheering for the Oilers?
Because my Canucks are out.
The same nearly 5,000 kilometers away on the East Coast.
The only team left with Canadian emblems on their jerseys is Edmonton, and we all have to support them.
They learned from last year, and I honestly believe they'll take it in 6.
Oiler support will even be displayed on Canada's tallest freestanding structure, Toronto's CN Tower. This post getting mixed reaction. One person writes, Canadian team or no Canadian in Cup final, we should not be posting Oilers colors in Toronto. Another says there's no patriotism in the NHL. It's Leafs or no one else, let alone another Canadian team. Former Oiler George Larocque shared a picture of a Let's Go Oilers sign on Montreal's Champlain Bridge. In Winnipeg, a local chocolate shop has gone from crafting Jets pucks to Oilers pucks, and say they are proud doing so.
We all know it's been 35 years since the Canadian team has won and 33 for the Oilers, so we're Canadian, we're rooting for them.
Canada's team or not, there's no question the Oilers are bringing out Canadian pride, getting hockey fans from coast to coast, cheering for them to break the Cup curse. Nicole Weisberg, CTV News, Edmonton.